Good evening. I'm Crimson with Shine a Light in the Dark, and I am here with the wonderful Mayhem from Burning Legion. And he is going to do us the grace and honor tonight of giving us a little moonlight. So tell me a little bit about what y'all are kind of working on and what's going on. I know Injustice has come out, and so that's out, but what's kind of been going on with you and the band? And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, again, Crimson, thank you again for the opportunity. I do appreciate it for coming on the show. So, Burning Legion, yeah, we just released Injustice, which is a single that we had in January, and we're really excited about it. Very different from our first release, I Am Domination, but it's something more melodic. We're really happy with it. Eric Fernandez, our one of the guitar players that we have, he has took the lead on that one and really wrote the song and put it together, which is great. We're really happy. But Burning Legion is we're actually coming down maybe to 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, for the release of our debut album called En Sabinor, which translates to the first one. And I can see, in the background that you got some Zelda stuff and some comic book stuff. So I mean, I'm a comic book nerd, and the guys in Legion, they're just like, well, screw it. Like Matt's the nerd, screw it. Let's just go with some stuff. Burning Legion actually came, the name Burning Legion actually came from World of Warcraft. Big World of Warcraft fan over here. Yeah, I know. We're grooving. I'm telling you. Let me see what you got. I can't see. I can't see what you got. I can't. I could. Sorry, my eyes are edit this. Oh, dude, that's so awesome. Look at that. Look at that. Cataclysm stuff. Some cataclysm love over here. So in addition to that, we're really excited for that. The reason why we use En Sabinor was that's from X-Men. That's what they called Apocalypse, right? That's his alien name. So he's the first mutant, the first one. Um, and we're really proud of it because we feel like this album is kind of like a mutation. It's kind of like an evolution of heavy music and where it needs to go, where we want to go as musicians. Is like, it's not thrash, it's not death, it's not doom, it's not, it's a lot of different things. It's a lot of different avenues where we're really excited, because we want to play just heavy music, and we're starting to realize, and we're at the turn of the century, that not it doesn't have to be heavy distorted guitar all the time. It's things could be deep in different ways. So Burn Legion is just working on that. We're doing a lot of social media stuff. We're really active on TikTok. We're really active on Instagram. So we just moving along.
No, that's awesome. And you see, you were after my heart when you started talking about World of Warcraft and Zelda. And I got like the little, I don't know if you can see the little Eye of Truth.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
got so
That's
many
awesome.
Zelda tattoos. It's not even funny. I've got Navi on my leg too,
Oh my goodness.
and
We
Majora.
oh my God. We got another, we have to have another episode then, right? The nerd episode.
Right. So no, no, I love that. And
Oh,
like there's so much in common. It's awesome.
yeah.
But yeah, no, like talking about like the music, like about how like there are different like forms of heavy and stuff like that. And so like with Burning Legion, right? Like so I believe like music is like its own entity, right? Like it's something like well as it's music, but it almost takes on its own life form at times as something that can understand us in our darkest moments and help us even understand ourselves or even understand others or parts of ourselves that we didn't know about. And the musician, both lyrically and musically, really pull in the listener to be able to join them in this other world so that they can feel those things. What is
Yeah.
kind of y'all's ideal world that y'all are trying to create for your listeners? And does that world align with the worlds that you went to with your favorite musicians as a child?
Yeah. First of all, phenomenal question. I think that's a great question, and I think that's a very big topic for Burning Legion to kind of sink their teeth in because I grew up listening to music. Again, we kind of talked a little bit off air what my real profession is, but that's always been a part of me, right? I mean, I just remember my dad telling stories to my uncles and to my friends that he would put like Black Sabbath on my mom's stomach, so I was listening to Black Sabbath before I was even like existing in the world. So, but to answer your question, I think yeah, I agree with you. I mean, music is something spiritual, is something very important. I mean, it doesn't matter what type of music music it is. It could be metal, it could be country, it could be rap, it doesn't matter, as long as somebody could gravitate to it. And I think with Burning Legion, the thing that's so special, especially to me, and the guys have been so wonderful, Eric and Adrian, to be so receptive to kind of being able to express myself lyrically in the music, and not just the heavy part, right? Like we could do the heavy all day. That's easy, right? But as it comes to creating an ambiance, creating a story, creating a narrative, creating a universe, I think Burning Legion is more of like the trauma that I've had, and the guys are kind of receptive to that. They're kind of similar in that situation. So I think people who listen to Burning Legion, yeah, they might be like, hey, okay, yeah, the riffs are cool, the production is great and stuff. But more than anything, I want to resonate with the person that's inside, right? With my solo stuff, I've had a lot of great response, because again, it was kind of focusing on mental health stuff that I was going through on at the time, and it was called the Unbroken EP, which was kind of targeting mainly everything that I was going through with anxiety and depression, and people gravitated to it. So I think metal specifically is ready to have this resurgence of just like, let's talk about stuff that's real, right? I mean, yeah, we could talk about demons and this and that, all that stuff, all the fun stuff, right? But I think in reality is just, the best bands, again, like Sabbath, talked about the real things, right? Talked about the hard hitting issues. And I think with Burning Legion, that's kind of what I set out to go. And again, it's Burning Legion might think like we might, again, the music's kind of extreme and might sound aggressive, but we're three wholesome guys, as you can tell, nerds and stuff. But the whole part of Burning Legion is to for the free thinkers, for the people that want to look for different forms of music to kind of just to be filled, to be empowered, right? To be inspired, to be motivated, to find different avenues where heavy music can go, right? Again, we could do death metal all day, thrash metal all day. Nothing against those guys, legends and people that have write that music right now. But I think it's time to move, in a different direction.
I love what you were talking about, like about, like even the real heavy hitters, like they wrote about the issues that were so close to home. And it's funny because like you were talking a little bit about like talking about like demons and stuff like that, but like I think that sometimes the scariest part of human nature to talk about is those parts of ourselves, the dark parts of ourselves, or the struggles that we're going through. Because from the time we're a child, we're taught, not to almost express ourselves. And then we live in a world that teaches us so many lies about ourselves from the moment we open our eyes. You're not this enough, or you're not that enough, or you're not this enough. And so and kind of like what that journey is as you get a little bit older is kind of going through the deception and realizing the vulnerable, the real authentic version of yourself and learning how to express that. And I love how your music really showcases like expression and that depth because it's funny. I've always considered myself a follower of music, but I've learned about myself that I'm a follower of people. And I guess what I mean by that is if I can get behind a soul, I'm like, damn, I love that Phoenix moment soul,
Yeah.
which is kind of like what I was hearing you talk about was like the whole alchemic healing part of music. It's funny as a therapist, I make a joke all the time that as a therapist, I am bound by time and space.
Yeah.
One client per hour. As a musician, you're not bound by time and space. You could
Mhm.
be having a healing jam session right now with people you've never even met, but they are acutely aware of who you are and how healing your music has been to them
No.
in that space.
Yeah, I
And
agree with
I,
you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like what are your thoughts kind of on that?
Well, I mean, I think more than anything, like I said, music is a very spiritual thing. It's a universal language. One of my biggest idols of all time is Jimi Hendrix, and one of the things he's really kind of big on is like, in music there's no black and white. It's all very abstract, and you could tell by his music, right? Music isn't a religion. Music is a space for everybody. It's the frequencies, it's the imagery, it's the love, it's the hate, it's the anger, it's the trauma. So I like what you said about that, especially with therapists and mental health professionals. That's I'm a big advocate for that, and that's kind of like what I talk about in Burning Legion. Is again not only just the mental health part of it, but the scariest place somebody could go is somebody's mind, right? Somebody that's suffering from schizophrenia, bipolar, in a manic state. There's so many different things and different nuances that, I grew up Catholic, so that used to be the scariest thing for me, right? Growing up and learning about my own spiritual path and my own way of adapting to the world. And Burning Legion and just music in general has been a very good outlet for me to kind of just put my message out there. And I like how you said alchemaic, because that's the reason why Burning Legion uses so much purple, because well, now I should speak for myself. I can't speak for the other guys, but I'm very into the chakras, and I'm very into the in the one being one with self, and the universe is within yourself, and that we have more control with our mind and our bodies than we actually think. And the purple represents the crown chakra, and so a lot of people might not understand that. That's a lot of metaphysical stuff, right? Which is great, if people are into it. But that's what I'm kind of trying to incorporate a little bit more into metal, because again, and it's very black and white, right? Metal's just like blasting, and which is cool. Right? I grew up on that stuff, right? But I think it's time for metal to kind of have these new resurgence, and different cats coming in with more spiritual things, right? It's okay to talk about that. One of the things I wrote in the upcoming album is the song Burning Legion, and it's like you could take it either way, where there's always a demon in your head. Like I said, everyone has a hell in their mind, right? So it's, do you want to come in here with me, or do you want to just kind of like, hey, right? But we all have something that we're scared of, and so it's good to kind of use music more than anything to release it.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I really like how you were talking about like that, the prakra, you know, I also do like sound bowl therapy and so I agree with you about like the aligning of the chakras and like how we have more of an influence in things than we think we do. But what's really beautiful is kind of like when you were talking a little bit about like that alchemic process is that I think that so much of the time we surrender a lot of ourselves without realizing that we're doing it to our circumstances or what's going on in the world. And I think it's beautiful when you see bands that are talking about something that's real, something that's solid, something that, we've all experienced to some extent. And, you know, which is why I loved the Injustice when I listened to it, by the way. And
Oh, thank you.
but I have to ask,
Sure.
because these are all such vulnerable topics and because they are so vulnerable, what advice would you have for individuals trying to learn to stand in their own vulnerability and be their authentic self?
Mm.
And then when the challenges arise, what advice do you have for them to overcome them?
Are you saying as a musician, or are you saying in general as an individual?
Personally, I want to know how you took it and answer it.
Okay.
That's the therapist in
Well,
me.
that's a therapist in you. Yeah. Well, I mean, I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
it's
No,
okay.
but
No,
like kind of both, honestly, because I feel like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
both, right? Like
yeah.
both of those worlds are really kind of the same. And the way I'm hearing you describe like your life as music and life as self, I feel like those worlds are really like one world for you. So I guess however you want to answer it would be amazing.
Sure. No, I mean, with more than anything, in an advice is, um, find out what the inner child is trying to tell you, what it needs, what it's coming from. Because the musician that you are at 18, and the 15-year-old, right? That, well, we're going to conquer the world, we're going to get groupies, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to be the same musician 20 years from now. It's not. It's just reality, right? You're going to have experiences, you're going to have heartache, the ups and downs, all that stuff. And I think when you come across to all the different experiences in your life, you have to stand your ground on all of it. And not just standing your ground, I'm just saying, understand who you are, right? Because sometimes when musicians are like, oh, they look back and they're like, oh god, why'd I do that album, or why'd I spend time with that person? It was like, well, it all happened for a reason, dude. Because I was in that aspect where, before Burning Legion and my solo stuff, I was focusing on my band before, and I put all my eggs in that basket. There was no boundaries. There was very high expectations, very loose situations, right? But I learned from that. I thought, when that band ended, I was like, oh, there goes my brothers, there goes my life, right? Um, and but that's not reality, right? And I grew from that. And now I have Burning Legion, which is like, I couldn't believe that I'm writing music like this and that we have the technology for it. But again, to kind of go back to answering your question, I think it's just be happy with yourself, love yourself, be happy with what the music you're writing, even though, you might get 10 bad reviews, who cares? You wrote it, right? Just be okay with you before you write anything, right? That's my biggest thing, is like, love yourself before you even pick up an instrument. We'll get to know yourself before you even start messing with the frequencies, the minor key, the minor, the all the other key, the major keys and all that stuff. The tech, we all have all the tools and the toys, which is great. But if you don't know who you're dealing with, none of that shit matters. Sorry, can I cuss? I'm sorry. But I'm just saying, yeah. But none of that even matters. Just love who you are. And then if you got guys or gals or people around you who are supportive and kind of, and not just yes men, not just like, oh, that's a cool sounding song. No, that could give you constructive, like, hey, maybe too much bass here, or hey, you know what, this lyric didn't make sense, but overall, you're on the right path. I think you're cooking.
No, and that's extremely important to have those people in your life that are like
Oh yeah.
that, that
Oh
are,
yeah.
what do they say, that I love you enough to make you hate me in the moment or to dislike
Yeah.
me for just a second, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I don't do you any justice if I actually just am a yes man to you and just tell you what you want to hear. I've done you no justice. I've actually done you a huge disservice because now I've let you go out there and you know that I could have stopped, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really wanted to talk about how you were talking about like before you put all your eggs in one basket with the band, right? And that you learned a lot of lessons. And then it brought you to Burning Legion. What I think is so cool about that, and I just kind of wanted to see like what your thoughts are on this, is if you hadn't have learned the boundaries and everything that you went through in the previous band, do you think Burning Legion would have worked out the same way it did? Or do you think that, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we have to have those moments that happen for us to learn, like, oh, maybe I need to focus here or do this or revert in some way. And that way that we don't make the same mistakes and we've learned that lesson as we go into the next phase without making it again.
That's a very interesting question, and it's kind of hard to answer because, you know, looking back on it, I mean, because yeah, that's kind of hard to answer because with the name of the band that I was in before was Serpent Within, and so with that band, it was more of a brotherhood, right? It was more, and again, I'm not saying that me and Eric and Adrian are not brothers or anything like that, but I think it was more intimate because it was a more studio band, or I mean more live band than anything. But um, it's kind of hard to say because I'm kind of grateful for what happened with that band. It needed to happen, and I'm a firm believer, the universe and whatever spiritual way people want to interpret it, but I feel like that it was already written that way, right? Everything that's happening with Burn Legion is already going to happen. The success and the failures and the turmoil and the obstacles are already in the way. It's already going to happen, right? I just need to know how I'm going to react to them. It's I got to control what I can control, right? As the bass player, as the songwriter, as the lyricist, putting these guys together and just making amazing heavy music. But I that's a hard question to answer because yeah, maybe in the moment, and my young 22, 23-year-old self was like, dude, this sucks, right? Like my life's over, but looking back on it another 10 years later, I'm like, you know what, it needed to happen. It needed to happen to come here and have Burning Legion come out with a vengeance, because if I compare, Serpent Within to Burning Legion, it's just like it's comparing, a filet mignon to a protein bar.
Yeah,
It's
no, and
just, yeah,
actually
yeah.
you answered it perfectly because when you said that you were grateful that it happened, that's kind of what I was getting at, was kind of like that perspective. Like, yeah, of course, like when it happened in the moment, it was hard, but then like that perspective shift comes over and it's like, oh, well, this needed to happen for me to be able to learn and grow and to be this version of myself that I've grown into, or, X, Y, or Z, to happen. So I really love that. And you were
Mm.
talking like earlier about like your inner child, about you're not the same musician, now that your inner child originally saw you as. What do you think your inner child would say to you today if like he was able to sit in a room with you and to know all the things that you've done and like where you are and just like how vulnerable you've been able to be with your music and how inspirational and just like all of it. Like, what would he say?
Oh, he would probably, shit his pants, he'd probably be surprised, because he's, because I mean, inner child man, I mean, I would say he would be probably 12, 13 years old when he got his first bass, right? And just listening to Pink Floyd, Nine Inch Nails, Black Sabbath, all these guys, and like, hey man, like, if I could go back and tell him, like, dude, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, check it out, like, you could do this stuff on a computer in your home, and he would probably be like, what, like, I don't have to like make it, and because that was it, that was the motivation back in the day, was like, hey, just focus on the instrument, focus on your songwriting, what are they doing, observe, absorb all the information you can. But I think he would be proud more than anything, but vice versa, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change it, because I think I was in the last of the dying breed where, we had the tab books, and because I'm not professionally trained. I've never took any lessons. I mean, I did none of that, and again, I used to be self-conscious about it, but I kind of have a badge of honor with it now, where I'm like, hey, I don't care what key I'm in. I don't care, right? I'm not John Petrucci. I'm not Dream Theater. I'm not those guys. Those are those guys. I'm not Cliff Burton, even though I love him so much. But I rather, and that's the thing nowadays, that I'm seeing all the nostalgic and retro stuff. Like, a bunch of kids are trying to be Cliff Burton, which is great. I mean, I think the influence is great, but instead of being Cliff Burton number two, three, four, or five, why don't I be the first Mayhem? You know what I mean? So I think my inner child would probably be like excited about what's happening.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm so excited for that because I agree with you that, you know, that it's flattery, like I said, to try that. But then like it's also like, what about being true to that authentic version of what you can only bring to the world, right? That
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
you.
yeah. Well, I mean, because Cliff Burton already did it.
Exactly. And he did
Let's
beautifully at it.
exactly.
He owned it.
Yeah, it's him, and so that's why do I, who wants to hear the like, same thing with like Judas Priest, right? Like, how many Judas Priest rip-off bands are there? How many, Metallica rip-off it, you know what I mean? And again, not to discredit them, it's just like, go do something else, man. Add a synthesizer, throw in another bass hole. Like, as much as I love my tone and I sound, people are like, oh, you sound like Cliff, you sound like this. Cool, thank you, but that's me. That's what's coming out. That's the expression. That's the color I'm painting with, but I'm not him. I will never be him. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back even a little bit too, or we're talking about like the inner child to even ask you like when was Mayhem born? Like when did you know that music was that moment that you really like, because the path of a musician is not always the easiest path.
Yeah, well,
It has a lot of trials and it's beautiful, but it has a
yeah,
lot of struggles as well. So
yeah.
when did you kind of know that this is what you wanted?
Very interesting question. I knew it. I knew it just pretty much even before I played bass. I knew it when I was like looking at the covers, when I was like watching them on stage. When I bought Cliff 'Em All and on VHS, and watching him just go crazy, and watching Metallica do all this stuff, and all my heroes and stuff. I knew that was me. I knew that was like um and I just knew that was I mean, again, I'm Burning Legion's a kind of a studio band, and I mean, if we get to play the stage, one day we're happy with it, but more than anything, I'm just happy to play. But I knew at the moment, I was just like listening to it, I was like, oh, this has to be like this, like, oh, I could do this too, right? And I remember my dad, and and my uncles, because my family's from El Salvador, and my grandfathers, and I come from a lineage of Spanish classical guitar players. So it was kind of like told to me, like, hey, like, you're gonna like music. I'm like, I do like music. Well, hey, well, if you want to do that with your life, go right ahead. There was no, I always had a very supportive family and stuff, but it's kind of funny, because I was like the first one listening to like heavier stuff, right? Like, Metallica and all that stuff. And then my uncle started listening to that. So, but I mean, to answer your question, it was pretty much when I came out with the womb. I was always surrounded by great music. Like, my sister loved Motown, my other sister loved Prince. My dad listened to classic rock. I was just always around it. So, it kind of sucks that I'm not touring, but I feel like it's like a manifest destiny, but I mean, maybe in another lifetime, I'm just happy what we're doing with Legion.
No, it really sounds like music's in your blood, like
Yeah.
and like in the air that you're breathing is almost like what I'm hearing is like music's everywhere for you. And so I have to ask you, like at its core component, what is music to you?
Oh, music. Music is life, man. Music is everything. Music is if man, if see I don't get it like how some people are like oh, I don't like metal. Like okay, I get well, let me rephrase it. Like I get it, but like to not respect it. Like for an example, like I don't like, reggaeton or like some country or something like that, but I know I do acknowledge that it's art. I do know that it's something that it could touch somebody else, right? But to me, music is everything. Like everything is music. Like if you really like it's funny because one of my favorite drummers of all time, Gene Hogan from Strappy Young Lad and 50,000 other bands that he's in, but uh he said, you're a musician when you're driving and you got your turn signal and you're making a beat. And that's exactly what I do. I'm just kind of like doing some blast beats or whatever, but to me it's everything. Like in movies, what are we listening to? The music, right? That's what creates the movie, right? Just anything that we see, if you add a soundtrack to something, it makes it like a billion times better. So I it's everything to me.
No, no, I love that. And there's a famous quote, kind of even talking about like what you've done with music and like how you've really embraced that and even like that vulnerability. And I almost heard you talking a little bit about manifestation, like for being a little bit too. But like there's this famous quote that says that the job of a musician is like that of a lover, to awaken you to the parts of yourself that you never knew existed and to show you a world that you never knew.
Damn, who said that?
And I wish I could remember who quoted it. Like I read the quote one time, but I don't
I'm like,
remember who it was
damn,
by.
damn.
But I
Well, whoever,
loved it. It
whoever did it is
whoever
beats the
If
shit out of
anybody
me.
knows too, leave it in the comments
Yeah,
because
leave it
like
here.
I would
Yeah,
love to
yeah,
know. But I remember
yeah.
I read it one time and I was like, so I can't take credit for it. But like I read it and I was like, I love it, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
because it awakens a part of our soul that it's almost like it's like a fire that keeps us alive. And I believe that a lot of times, like with depression and a lot of times, like I was talking to someone the other day, a coworker, and they were talking about how like depression itself was the absence of hope. And one of the things that music and passion and things can reignite and redrive is hope. It can reawaken the parts of us that have fallen asleep. And almost like you were talking about, like the music and the soundtrack, like the music's everywhere. Like the music is almost like everything. It's what creates the mood. It creates the entire vibe of like what you're supposed to be feeling in that
Oh
moment, you
yeah, oh
know?
yeah, oh yeah. Think about it like this: when Black Sabbath released, I know I'm talking about Sabbath a lot, but sorry, but
Oh no, you're great.
when they released in 1970, right? What was the first song? Right, it was Black Sabbath, right? You didn't hear any instruments the first 5 seconds of that song. You heard rain and you heard the church bell, right? And then the church bell wasn't even on time. It wasn't, it was just they were hitting it. That's all that mattered. That's not even music, right? There's no key, there's no cadence, there's no tempo. That to me immediately showed, like I was like, look, none of the instruments came in yet, dude. And then as soon as they blast into it with Tony Iommi and the whole band hitting the power, I was like, holy shit! Like you could do this? Like I thought this was something ungodly. I still think it's ungodly. I still think it's like these guys are demigods. These guys are amazing. To even think of like, hey, don't even use an instrument yet, right? Don't let's just have they use like just the simplicity and just the power of just like, hey, this is the raindrops, the thunder, the bell, just that. And I'm like, oh yeah, everything is music.
Right?
Yeah.
It really is. And I love how we were talking about like the simplicity of it because I think that we go through our daily lives not realizing how much of everything is music. And what's kind of cool about music is that it doesn't even have to be like you're almost talking about like the thunder and lightning and the rain and the bell and everything like that the Black Sabbath used, which invoked a certain emotion, but we don't realize like that all the sounds around us evoke certain emotions, certain thoughts, certain feelings, even if it's in a language that, which of course Black Sabbath was in a language we could understand. But like even for other musics that are in languages we don't understand, it's it's so kind of it's funny that we can still get the same emotional pull that the artist was trying to deliver just from the sound of the music itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's why they're the greatest. That's why that's why to me
Yeah.
they're the undisputed, heavyweight champions of the world, right? But that's what's so beautiful is that if you think about what they did, right? They inspired, a
That's
bunch
what
of
made
other
them
bands.
that's what made them, right? Like what made them
Yeah,
that legend.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
you have to think about it though. Was there a part of them that when they first did that and it hadn't been done before, if they were scared, but if they hadn't have taken that risk on themselves,
Oh.
they would have never known this the amazing outcome of trying
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we wouldn't have the music that we have today. Think
They
about
would have gatekept Black Sabbath from us, the Black Sabbath we know. And I don't want to be
exactly.
rude.
I wouldn't have been here. I would have, to be honest. I don't think I would have existed, because like I always joke around and say like, I mean, I do have a father, but I never really had like a really good relationship after my teenagers. But I always think like Black Sabbath was like the father figure to me. I learned philosophy, songwriting, bass, everything from them. And with them, it's like we wouldn't have somebody like Nine Inch Nails, who create an ambiance, who create Trent Reznor. That's to me, it's like Black Sabbath and Nine Inch Nails. It's like those two, entities that, that could provoke different sounds without using the instrument. And see, for me, I'm like, if I'm using different sounds and different instruments, other than the typical bass, guitar, and drums distorted, you're cooking. You're a musician. Like you're a songwriter. You're a composer, right? Because we could do a 3 minute thrash song, which is great, love it, and there's heart in that and there's soul in that. But at the same time, when you're moving around with the different frequencies and understanding what frequencies do, you're on a different level. You're on a different level.
No, I mean I couldn't agree more, which kind of like brings me into the next question of like when you are creating that, and when you're writing those lyrics, do you already kind of know what you want to write about, or does that kind of come to you naturally? And what kind of space do you have to get into? Like, what does that process look like for you?
Man, it's funny because I always think about that, but I never say it out loud. So I guess it's kind of first timer, But when I was, oh man, when I was like young, I guess, well, because I had more time and stuff. But I had like books upon books upon books of just like writing stuff, and I was always, doing different rhyme schemes, using different vocabulary, to find, good stuff. Because again, one of my favorite things about writing and lyrics is like not only just the rhyming part, but it's just like i need I need this line. Doesn't matter if there's 20 lines after. I need this line to make you think, right? Because I don't want to just provide a good song. I want to provide some level of insight for you, right? I want to provide some level of education, maybe something along the lines of like making you feel something. You're like, whoa, wait, when I read this lyric, oh wow, like, wait, okay, hold on, wait a minute, let me pause it and let me understand what's that, process it, right? um so for me, I now that I'm older, I mean, I just kind of wait for it to come to me. Not kind of like when I was younger, I had more time and I could have all the time in the world to listen to like music and just, but I think what gets me in the headspace is just like what's happening to me at the time. What's inspiring me, what's because I'm again, I don't like really writing about um like the demons and all that stuff. Again, like I said, but I think the biggest thing for me is like it's hard to write music that's real, because how do I interpret it in the way I want to? And so to get in that space, like I said, I just let it come to me at this point. I have to write about something, like again, like Injustice is about questioning your own spirituality, questioning the people that have provided any type of cognitive dissonance in your, the other song, that I have called Power Beyond Death. It's about like, how metal needs to kind of come together, right? Like how music and heavy music needs to kind of come together, for the sake of our own survival, right? Because there's so much hate on the internet, and the keyboard warriors, right? And it's like, why don't we just write heavy stuff, And that's why I wrote that song. But to answer your question, yeah, it has to come to me. I have to when it. I feel like, again, it's a spiritual thing. I have to let it talk to me. If I know it's talking to me, like, oh, this line is making sense, cool, I'll start.
So where do you get, so my next question for that would be like, so where does your catharsis come in? Is it when you're writing, when the song's released, or where does that cathartic experience happen for you?
Mm, it probably probably when I'm listening to Final Masters, probably when I'm reviewing it with the guys, like, oh, okay, like, okay, yeah, this is what I wrote. Because it's funny, because the song, our first release, I'm Domination, I wasn't, to be honest with you, and Adrian knows this, and he knows how much I love him. I didn't expect it to be that heavy, right? I wasn't, and which is great, which is phenomenal. But when I review it and I listen to it, holy shit, I wrote this. Like, wow. Like, not to say like, oh, I'm fucking Elton John or anything, but I'm just like, wow, this, what I wanted to say came out heavier than I expected, and I'm cool with that. I love that. And to have that type of like cathartic experience of like, wow, I wrote this. Okay, cool. All right. Let me, sometimes I even like doubt myself, and every musician is like, fuck, like how, like, how am I supposed to follow this up? Like, but you just got to get out of your own head at that point.
No, I love that you talked about how you even like surprised yourself, because I think that's like that amazing part of like self-love. Like you're supposed to be like I think it's good to be surprised by ourselves. Like,
Oh
damn, like
yeah.
I did that. Like
Yeah.
that's just appreciate a good form of self-love and like appreciation for all the hard work that you've put into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, and I mean, one of the best things I heard is like Carlos Santana said is like, if you don't give yourself chills, nobody's gonna get chills. Like you gotta love your music. You gotta take care of your music. It's your baby. And yeah, there's times where I'm like, wow, I get goosebumps thinking about it or writing about it, because I'm like, wow, the interpretation is coming out, the soul is coming out, the abstract is coming out, the universe is coming out, and I get to share this with people. If people don't like it, fine. People don't, if people love it, that's fine too. I gotta have that middle ground. I gotta stay humble. I gotta stay on the ground, right? Because then I don't want to be, I don't want Mayhem or my name or the guys or Burning Legion to be, oh, like they're a bunch of cock stars. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's just like we're happy with what we write. We want to share it with you even better.
No, that's beautiful, and I love how, you know, you're even think like I wanted to even like go back to where we're talking about like the thumb warriors and stuff online, and like you were like, you know, if you like what I wrote, then I love it, and if you don't, then that's good, that's fine too. I think that we live in a society, in a world today where everyone wants something authentic. Everybody wants something real, something vulnerable, something raw, but then we want to punish it
Yeah.
when it is real, authentic, and raw. Then we don't want it, right? And
Mhm.
so then I guess my question would be, what's really helped you, for maybe somebody else that's struggling with it, what has really helped you overcome kind of taking too much consideration into what like the thumb warriors are doing, or like those who aren't even giving constructive criticism, they're just being assholes
Mhm.
at that point. you know what's really helped you kind of quiet that so that you could stay true to that authentic, vulnerable version of yourself?
One there we got a really bad review for Injustice a couple when it was released, and I did hear it, and it caught me off guard. Because I was like, "Oh, wow, these guys are pretty brutal with what they're saying about us." But again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think it's sad. I think it's really a detriment to not only just heavy music, but just all music when you, for lack of a better word, talk shit. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't, it's not putting more money in your pocket. And if it does, that's dirty money. And where is your morality lie? Where is your ethics lie? Where's your values lie? That's the thing about Beyond the Heavy, is that I don't like on my podcast, I don't like to, do gotcha questions or talk shit, because it's too easy. it's easy to get a cheap bang or a cheap buck just to do that. But for me, it's just like, when I got that review, I was like, oh, okay. I was irritated for like 5 minutes, and then I was like, well, again, why are they saying that? What can I control? Well, I can control the fact that I wrote the song and I'm happy about it, and that's how I expect it. They might not like it, but there might be another 100 people that could like it. And then even if they don't, well, at least I put myself out there, right? So I always have to kind of ground myself and understand, like, what is it that I can control? Right. I can't control other people's opinions. And again, the keyboard warriors, they're going to be there, right? They're going to probably say, like, oh, Burning Legion, oh, World of Warcraft, and they're a rip off and but yeah, all that other stuff. Well, whatever, man. Listen to the music, right? Give us a chance, right? And it's everybody has something it's so like it's too human to be like, hey, I hate this. Well, I like to challenge myself and be like, hey, what do I like about it? And if I can't find something that I like, well, then hey, I don't like it, but that's them, right? Like I like in Burning Legion, we kind of have a joke that, like, I don't like Trivium, and again, I don't hate them. I think they're probably phenomenal human beings and great people and great musicians. I just don't gravitate to the music, right? But I wish them all the best. I wish them more success, because I know that's what they want to do. That's their passion. So more than anything, I think for me, it's just like I always have to remember, what can I control? Well, I can control my behavior. I can control my thoughts. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
No, I really love that. And I really love even how you were talking about like, that the good it reminds me of that old saying that one man's trash is another man's treasure
Yeah.
kind of thing. That, there's certain music that I absolutely love that other people don't, and that's okay, or that they love and that I don't. It's not quite my fancy, right?
Mhm.
And what's beautiful about that is that if all the music was the same, then there would be a whole big version, like a whole group of people that would never get reached, you know?
Yeah.
And because, I feel like our like music almost says a lot about like what you listen to almost says a lot about who you are just in general.
Mhm.
The music you like, the lyrics that you're listening to, what that replay song is, like I feel like there's a part of our own souls that we put into the music that we're sending the energy towards, right? Because I
Mhm.
feel like it's an equal energy from both, right?
Mhm.
And so I guess my next question for you would be, what is that kind of repeat song or song that you've noticed yourself listening to a lot lately?
Lately, oh, let me pull up my Spotify real quick. Watch, I have my phone right here. Watch, hold on, let me tell you. Yeah, it's a couple things. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a Spanish song or something like that, or like a Latin song or something. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Watch, I'll tell you what my repeat is. And if it's Injustice, that's gonna be hilarious. But hold on. You go right. Oh, it is. But I think well, I'll tell you the following two, which is Fabulous Disaster by Exodus. I just
Okay.
I just love that song. And then Mercy, by a fantastic, fantastic band by the name of The Native Howl. I love them so much. They're kind of like a bluegrass thrash band, very, very, very unique band. But I
It
mean,
was
for me, that
Mercy. What was the name of it? What was the name of
uh
the
the,
song? Mercy.
the name of the
Mercy
song
by
is
who?
The Native Howl. Yeah, The Native Howl. Those guys, shout out to those guys. They know how much I love them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know them personally, but I mean, they're just phenomenal, phenomenal musicians. They're great guys. But for the most part, I mean, it's yeah, that's what's on repeat. But uh, it's it's Exodus. It's just it's just I always have a song that I'm always kind of like replaying over and over again. I mean, I think I've given Dave Mustaine probably a new car how much I've listened to Rust in Peace. Or at least a down payment, knowing how streams pay off and stuff. But I it's always the classics with me. But I'm always trying to listen to new things, and like like Titan's Wrath, guys that I know in the local scene and stuff. So yeah.
You know, and I guess I kind of had another question for you too.
Mhm.
Is so I know that you were talking about like how music had been around you like ever since you were a child. It was in your blood and in the air and all around you. And then you set on this path to be a musician. What kind of inspired even like the Beyond the Heavy?
Beyond the Heavy was again a combination of what I do in my or my professional life outside of being a musician, and a combination of what I am a musician. Because I feel like certain podcasts are kind of just like kind of the same questions, you know, like kind of like, hey, who do you like? Who are your top albums? Blah blah blah. What can you say about this new album? Which is that's great, great questions. Promotion, I got you, but that's why I named it Beyond the Heavy because I want to know what's beyond the you know the musician, right? I want to know, like, because everybody could just say, you know, because every metal interview is the same thing, right? It's the same damn question, you know, tell us about the new album, and then the person is going to be like, oh, it's the heaviest thing we've done, or we've experimented a little. It's either those questions, right? But with me, I just like to ask a couple questions or kind of just go through the motions or whatever, and just kind of groove with the person and just groove with the and I've made fantastic musicians and lovely people that, you know, you wouldn't even got to know, right? Like I'll be like, hey, tell me about that album, right? Tell me about the scene, you know, tell me about how'd you come to your instrument, right? Things like that, that which I think I wish, you know, we had more back in the day when now that we have the technology, but you know, it inspired me. I'm like, why don't we know more about these people, right? Because again, and as a musician, like, okay, let's be real, we love talking about ourselves, but I also want to hear from them, like, because musicians have the best stories, like they have the best stories. Like, you know, when I saw Rocket Man, I was like, oh my God, like like this is what Elton John went through, you know? So you know, so they have always the best stories. So that's why I created Beyond the Heavy.
No, I think that that's beautiful, and I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. And you were talking about how it kind of was like that blend between, your professional life and your life as a musician. And, how do you think that those have maybe even influenced each other? Like your outside job, has maybe even influenced your lyrics or even the way that you interact with other musicians to want to get to know those deeper parts of them. Has there been an influence? And if so, how do you feel like it's influenced you?
I think more than anything is like when I check out a band, like if Ben, our publicist, will throw me, like, you know, I'll listen to them and I'm like, oh wow, like that's really cool. Like there's a band that he I interviewed a couple months ago by the name of Sacred Dawn, and they that like those guys just blew me the hell away. I was like, whoa, like you guys are just whoa, you know. But it inspired you know, a little fire under my ass because I was like, oh shit, I need to get back into, you know, into the writing process. Not that I have to, but it got me, you know, got the juices flowing and everything. But for me, it's in everyday life. I mean, me personally, I used to, I've gotten a lot better, but I had a lot of anxiety, not so much depression, thank God, but you know, it's stuff outside. It's what I observe, you know, like different families, people that I've interacted with, you know, that inspire me, you know, because my whole professional career I've worked with, you know, severely mentally ill, you know, probation youth, at-risk youth, schizophrenics, bipolar people, gentlemen that have been just rehabilitated into jail, you know. So if you can't find inspiration there, then that you're screwed. You know, there's a lot of inspiration you could draw from that, and that's the thing is like music is always going to be a reflection of what your experiences are, a reflection of society, a reflection of who you are and what you're trying to say to the world and what needs to be said, right? Because I mean, we could write beautiful music like, you know, Iron Maiden, Hallowed Be Thy Name, and then you got like Nicki Minaj and all these people talking about, you know, WAP and stuff, you know. But whatever, you know, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, you know, there's more context. There's something deeper than that, you know. There's a purpose for each of them, you know. So, but I'm just more drawn to the stuff that's deeper.
No, no, I love that. And it sounds like too, like, even as a musician, you put part of your soul into your music. And, you were even talking about like kind of those statements. And then, I know that you can't speak for the whole band, but at the end of the day, like as far as like your mission statement or just like your statement of what you really hope as you're giving a piece of your soul with your music, what do you really hope? What is that message that you're ultimately wanting to send to everyone?
As Burning Legion or as just individually?
as yourself as an individual musician and as Burning Legion?
Well, as myself, I'm always trying to tell you, don't give up on yourself, right? Don't think because, whatever demographic or social, what part of the social economic status that you're in, or the culture that you're in, that you can't play the music that you don't want to play, right? You do like, part of me is like, do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? Do it, and do it with boundaries, do it with love, do it respect, do it with honor, do it with all that, because if you don't want to do, if you're bound to something, then you're not living. You have to do what you want to do. And I'm blessed enough to have, my wife, my girls, my family, and my bandmates to not only just support me, but just to, like, hey, yeah, this is good stuff, right? Or whatever it may be, right? That they're like, hey, yeah, go ahead and do it. They're never just like, oh yeah, dude, you're never gonna make it, or no. And we've had those naysayers, every musician has, but my thing is like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you ain't hurting anybody, do whatever the fuck you want to do. You're not bound to anything, you know. And as Burning Legion is, the message we're trying to put out is just like, again, that, but also, find out who you are. Find out what's inside of you, what's happening in you. You could feel it. Like, I think, like, some metal is like, we is so emotional, but we're taught not to be emotional, like, oh no, we're like tough guys with long hair and beards, and like, no. But like, dude, when we're out there, we're like, all of us are like, it's like almost like a tribe. We're just like hugging each other, throwing up on each other, pushing each other, punching each other in the face. And I'm like, okay, this is all the emotion that, like, this is emotion, this is raw human interaction. It's tribalistic. It's awesome. So Burning Legion is about, yeah, just like, let's bring it together, and like, let's leave all the like, religious stuff, and the negative things, politics, all that bullshit out of it, because it's like, that's how we don't make it as a society. That's what Burning Legion's ultimately about. That's what Burning Legion, like, even the first track on the En Sabanur, the very very first track is called Fear No God, right? And again, it's not like a black metal thing, like, oh hey, we hate that religion. No, it's like, don't fear, what you can't control, right? Do what you want to do. If you're not hurting anybody, do it. Yeah, that's the message.
I absolutely love that. And I love kind of that y'all are taking that time to put that message out. And I really just I love how it's supporting like authenticity and vulnerability and just honestly like just the human part of us, right? Because you like leave all of it out, but just come like as a human, like the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the non-labeled versions of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we hide, like come beyond the mask that the world told you had to wear.
Hmm.
And so I think that that's honestly, that's extremely beautiful.
Oh,
And I
thank you.
want to make sure I honor your time. So my last question for you
Sure.
is kind of just, what else would you love fans to know before we go?
Well, I would want them to check out the socials. All the social
Of
media
course.
stuff. Yeah, all that's number one. We're on Instagram, TikTok, like I said, YouTube. We don't have X because who the hell cares? We're getting situated with Facebook. We're on Bandcamp. Don't worry, we're gonna update it. We have exclusive merch. You can find it on our Instagram. It's an exclusive shirt. We've only got like 25 of them, so get yours ASAP. We're already kind of low, with one of the good artists here, local artists here, that has been blowing up the scene. Hugo Juarez from Heavy Defenders. Got to shout him out. Sorry, uh, I know he's probably gonna get all red reading all this and hearing all this, but he knows how much I love him. And just check out Burning Legion. Give us a follow. Right, it doesn't hurt to give us a like, comment, share. Main thing, share, get the word around. It helps. We don't have to just keep paying for ads, right? But just send it to a couple people that you think might like heavy music.
Yeah, no, you actually took the words out of my mouth because I always end with saying, and remember, guys, sharing is the best way to keep your favorite bands alive.
It's
Share, share, share.
free. You don't gotta.
It is, it's free. You don't have to do
Yeah,
any, you just have to press the share button. Like
it is.
just
It's
share,
it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
right? Like just press the button. Just press
Yeah.
it. But no, we'll have all the links in the description below, guys. Don't worry about it. And please send them lots of love, send them lots of light, and send them a share and a follow. And yes, and it was absolutely an honor speaking with you. I truly appreciated meeting with you tonight. So thank you
Li-
so much.
Likewise, Kristen, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Great questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.